My motorcycle was stolen, but that's not the end of the story. What's up, my biker friends, and welcome back to another video. This is one of those videos I thought I would never make. My bike was indeed stolen. It was in the fall of last year, and this is the full story. And it doesn't end with the bike just being stolen, so stay tuned. So in order to get started with the story, I have to back up a little bit. It's late 2022, and I was looking for a new motorcycle, the one I'm riding actually at the moment. This is a 2022 KTM 1290 Super Adventure R. For those of you guys know the channel, know that I had a 2020 KTM 1290 Super Adventure R. By the time I was about to switch to motorcycles, my 2020 model was about a year and a half old. I put about 35,000 kilometers on it. Most of those kilometers were in 2022. I had 4 large trips, and I was looking to upgrading to the current model, which is this one here, the 2022 model. So after buying my first 2 KTMs brand new from the dealership, this is my 3rd KTM that I own now. This one I bought used. It was slightly used. I think it had about 2,000 kilometers on it, was just a few months old. Was a pretty good deal, and considering that I take the bike off-road, you know, I was happy about the discount that I would get from the dealer because it was slightly used. And buy this bike. So I took delivery of the bike, I think around mid to end of October, and I was getting my old bike ready to sell it. So what I usually do is I bring it into really good shape because I don't want to sell a bike that has scratches on it and stuff. So I saved most of the original body panels and all that. That stuff was still brand new and pristine. So I made sure that the bike looks really good. So it does look a little different than to what you see in the video because I took the panels off. It doesn't have the graphic kits on there. So I put all the original parts on to make sure that I have a bike that doesn't have any scratches on it and stuff. So I got the bike ready to sell it, and I put it in a classified ad. And you know, it's the end of the season, so it's not that easy to sell a bike. It's actually a good time to buy a bike, but it's a bit harder to sell one. But most of my bikes, I think all of them actually, I sold at the end of the season. So it's still possible if you're willing to go down with the price a little bit, which I did. I think it was placed at a very sort of competitive offer for a used bike with that kind of mileage on there. And I've got a few responses. You know, the typical scammer emails too that you get nowadays, which is a bit annoying. But I got a few responses, and there was a guy from Cologne, I think. He said he was a dealer. There's a few contacts that we've had back and forth, a couple of phone calls and a few WhatsApp messages. And he said he would send someone over because he couldn't go by himself to pick up the bike and other vehicles. And I said that's fine. The one thing that was a little odd to me was the fact that that person wouldn't speak any German, said that person would just speak Russian. I'm like, well, that's going to be a bit difficult to sign a contract if you don't know the language. He said, yeah, don't worry about it, just to give him a call if there's anything that I needed to talk to him about. It's like, okay, fine, that sounds good. All this happened while I was on a train ride back to Berlin. I was actually on a business trip. I was actually in Cologne, but for other reasons, and I was coming back, so it was towards the end of the day that I sent my sort of private address out. And we would say we would meet on Friday afternoon. That was the plan. So Friday morning rolls around. I come up with my entire family. We had signed up for getting a second booster shot for Corona. So we were out in the morning, and I just couldn't believe my eyes. When I looked over where the bike normally sits, there was no motorcycle. And the bike is parked on private property. It's under a cover behind a steel gate. That moment of utter disbelief when you're looking at the place where you know you just parked your bike there and you checked it the night before, it takes a while to register with you, and it's like, no, it's really indeed stolen, and I just couldn't believe it. So we went to get our booster shots, and on the way back went to the police station to report the bike stolen. It's almost like an episode from, was it Zoolander or something? That sloth sitting behind the counter. This guy was really slow typing the information in, you know, with this one finger on the keyboard. But, you know, eventually he got all the information in the system. I had something to take to my insurance, called my insurance guy, which I had talked to the same week actually, because I was registering the new bike and getting the insurance for the new bike. And I had to tell him that the bike was stolen, and I just reported it to the police. So the weekend rolls around, and I think it was sometime Monday afternoon, and I get a phone call from the Berlin Police Department. And the guy calls me and it's like, listen, we found your motorcycle. And I was like, what? I mean, after just not believing that the bike was stolen, I couldn't believe that they would find the bike. They did. And they found it, to meet all the stereotypes, they found it right after the German border in Poland. And apparently the van that was used to steal the bike was also stolen. So it was a stolen vehicle, and it had another motorcycle in there. So there's two motorcycles in the van. And so the German police told me that I would have to get in contact with the Polish police. It's in Frankfurt, just over the border in Poland, and they would help me get my bike back. So I called my insurance guy, gave him the good news, said, okay, you're off the hook, guys. We found the motorcycle. I don't know what condition it is in, but at least the bike is there. So it took a while for me to even get in contact with the Polish police department. I tried to call every number that they had listed on the website, but it was really difficult to get a hold of someone. Also brought an email, that didn't go anywhere. So I ended up going there on a weekend day just to talk to a human being to get a contact so I could pick up a motorcycle. So that person gave me a contact information. I wrote another email, used the Google Translator to provide a German and an English email, and that kind of worked. And after so long back and forth, eventually I got an appointment to pick up the bike. So the bike was not at the police station. I thought it would be at the police station, but it's not. They have a place where they I don't know if it's an impound yard. They also have a tow truck there. I think they have sort of an external company that basically keeps all the vehicles that they find. It's a locked parking lot, so I had to get release papers from the police department and go there and see if I could get my motorcycle. Again, they didn't speak any German, we didn't speak a lot of Polish, and they didn't speak any English either, but somehow we could gesture what we wanted to do. So I had a friend of mine to help me pick up the bike, and then we went to the parking lot and we saw this white van. So it's the van that the bike was stolen in, and they didn't bother to take the bikes out. They were still in there. So they had these like three buff dudes are basically pulling out the Triumph that was also stolen, and then my bike was in there, sort of leaned against a mattress that was sitting in there. But of course, when they steal these bikes, they don't take a lot of time to make sure that they're properly secured and not get scratched. I think they just kind of throw it into the van, and that's about it. And that's what it looked like too. Anyway, these guys lifted the bike out. To my surprise, it looked relatively good. There's a few small scratches in there. I think the worst part that I had on the bike were actually the graphite that they used to check for fingerprints from the police department. I didn't fully understand what it was initially, but then someone told me it's actually the graphite that they used. So getting that stuff off the bike, that was probably worse than polishing some of the scratches off. So I was lucky overall to get the bike back. I was also very happy to know that the person that stole the bike was also in custody, because my biggest concern was not just that one bike that got stolen, but knowing that someone knows where you live, and that the chances are pretty good that there's going to be another bike sitting there at some point in time. So I would always have to worry about any bike that would be parked on my property to get stolen, and just knowing that that person's in custody, I think that was the most important thing for me. So we drove the bike back to Berlin, and this time around I still was intending to sell it. This time I sold it to a dealership. Didn't really want to sell it to a private person, put in the classified ads and put my address out there. I did sell it eventually. Of course, you're not getting the same amount of money as you get if you just selling it to a private person. But after all this, overall, I'm happy that I got the bike back and I was able to sell it, because I didn't really want to go through the hassle of the insurance. I don't know how long it takes. I mean, I have full coverage on the bike, so I shouldn't be too worried about it, but I know that it takes forever for insurances to come through and sort of pay out some of the stuff. So I didn't really want to test it out, and I was glad I got the bike back and that I could sell it, despite probably selling for a few €1,000 less than I could have. So, what's the takeaway from that story? Well, the first takeaway is I don't think I'm gonna give out my private address again, ever, when I sell something. I mean, I've sold so many vehicles over the years that it was never a problem, but I don't think I'm gonna do that again, and I would be very careful if you are in the same position to do the same. Find a parking lot nearby or something and just meet someone there, but I don't think I'll give my private address out again. That's the first lesson I'm taking away. Also, I started to buy a couple of locks for the bike, even though it's behind a closed gate on private property under a cover. I have 2 locks now, locking both wheels. I never had to do that, and I don't like to do that, you know, sort of over securing your property. But of course, after that experience and the hassle that you have to go through, I have 2 locks now, locking the disc in the front, one with an alarm in it, and I've got a chain through the rear wheel, just to make it a bit harder to steal a bike. It's still insured, so there's only so much you can do, and if it gets stolen again, I have insurance, but I hope I'll never get to the point where I have to deal with that insurance and have a stolen bike, especially considering how much time it takes for me to get my bikes ready in a way that I like to ride them. I put a lot of accessories on it, and you know, that takes time, and there's a certain way I want to have my bike, so ideally it doesn't get stolen. Anyway, guys, crazy story. I don't think I would ever have to share a story like this, but be careful when you sell your bike. Make sure it's locked up when you have it parked on your property. If you have a similar story to tell, I'll be very curious to hear about that. Put that in the comment section. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, ride safe and stay awesome.